Welcome everyone one more time to one more of WLFA's vibrant learning webinars. So great to have you all on board and great way to spend your Thursday afternoon and evening. And I'm hoping that you're all going to keep this as vibrant as possible by sharing your views and your opinions, not just your questions, using the chat as vibrantly as you can. Use the Q&A tab on the screen to be able to park your questions, and you may also direct your questions to specific panelists on the panel. So, get familiar with the platform as you're settling down to be able to sort of engage with us over the next 90 minutes. I'm Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, and I'm the founder of the Women Leadership Forum of Asia under the aegis of the Learning and Organizational Development Roundtable, which also I'm the founder of. I'm also the CEO of Capstone People Consulting, and I'm really delighted that you've decided to be able to log in and hopefully gain value on the important theme that we brought up today, which is the role of women in the new economy. But before we come to that, we'll tell you a bit about the Women Leadership Forum of Asia. Can we move forward, please? All right. So it's called the Women Leadership Forum of Asia, and our byline is Enabling Crucibles for Women Leadership, which is what we really started this forum out with about 8 years ago. So this was created under the aegis of the Learning and OD Roundtable. It has over 12,800 men and women as members, but eventually move forward. This forum is a forum for all kinds of diversities and inclusion. So we talk about helping organizations build cultures of inclusion across multi-generations, persons with disabilities. We work around the LGBTQ community integration and also promote all kinds of socio-cognitive diversities for organization, especially in the space of talent hiring. We have a 4Cs model, which is conviction, courage, competence, and commitment. And like I said, this forum got created under the aegis of the Learning and OD Roundtable. So we do what we do best, which is help through capability building and confidence building and mindset building to be able to create opportunities and preparing these communities, these diverse groups, to be ready when opportunity strikes. Move forward. So the Women Leadership Forum of Asia does work in the space of building capabilities for women. We focus, like I said, both on mindset and skill set. And the what you must look up, post this conversation here today is the Women Leadership Forum of Asia Diversity and Inclusion Academy, which has a whole host of very useful, capability building programs which you can bring into your organization, which are delivered by experts. There are also some certification programs for practitioners, D&I practitioners that you might want to explore. This is a very vibrant learning community of people who want to shape the world and make it a more equal and a more fairer place. Move forward. The Learning and OD Roundtable, the aegis under which we have created the Women Leadership Forum of Asia, is a not-for-profit like the WLFA. And it has been built to be able to create capabilities and mindsets to be able to enable members to drive change within their organization. This forum was created in 2010, has now currently, as we speak, over 25,000 members. And while our chapters are across 5 cities, in the current environment, this is an online forum and it is available to people not only in India, but various parts of South Asia and Southeast Asia. And we're very excited about where this forum is going, especially post the COVID times. Move forward. Here's the Governing Council. These are the wing below our wings, and we do what we do because we have great people supporting us. Adil Malia, who's also a speaker today, most of you would know him, is the chief executive of the firm. Dr. Akhil Basrai, who's also in our conversation today, both great evangelists and activists and speakers in the voice, especially in the context of women and equality. So Dr. Akhil Basrai of Akhil Basrai Consulting, Rajesh Padmanabhan of Talavi Business Catalyst. There's me, and I'm the CEO of Capstone People Consulting. Dr. Prince Augustine of the Mahindra Group, Rajeshwar of the Academy of Applied Emotional Intelligence, Srinivas Venkatram of Illumine Labs, Manu Wadhwa of Sony TV, and Rajesh Kamat of Chanakya Consulting. And these are really, really outstanding, iconic HR professionals. And I must say that as founder of this forum, I feel very, very blessed to have these people guide and support everything that we do, all the wonderful things that we do through both the forums. Move forward. So here's some more on the Academy and about how it is that you can become members. So reach out to Prudel or to Rupali, whoever you reached out to book on this program, and find out more about these online programs that are available, and enroll if you want. If you're an individual participant, there are huge discounts available. If you're an academician, there are discounts available, and you have huge opportunities to be able to come in and access very current insights and tools and cases and case studies and best practices on various aspects of diversity and inclusion. This is such a vibrant space, and I recommend strongly that people don't just learn on the fly, but come in to be able to learn through formal structured processes and programs. These are very international, very contemporary programs. I recommend strongly that you explore this. Move forward. And then, of course, join the movement as members, like I rightly said. And we have a great promotion going on right now. If you join as a member of the WLFA, you get the LNOD Roundtable membership free. If you come in as the LNOD Roundtable member, you get WLFA membership free. So great time to be able to come in, and half the cost of being able to really subscribe to both the forums. Move forward. One of the things I wanted to spend a couple of minutes to be able to talk to you about is the annual study of the Women Leadership Forum of Asia this year has been the Best Diversity and Inclusion Practices of Asia Study 2020, which now culminates into the Best Diversity Inclusion Practices of Asia Seminar and Awards 2020. This is on the 2nd of December. I'm going to ask you to diarize these dates. This is a not to miss conference. It's easily the largest D&I conference of the year, and has some very outstanding, insightful programs that you will otherwise not find easily. We saw the study having more than 56 companies participating, so you also have access to the best practices of these organizations. This is a large seminar. We're expecting people from business, from the business world, from government, from NGOs, educationists, students, researchers, musicians, actors, artists, everyone attend this conference together. So it's an absolutely everybody conference, and the theme of the conference, other than Best D&I Practice of Asia, is the focus or the byline is to be able to come together to shape a better world. So I recommend strongly that if you haven't booked already, that you come in, move forward. I'll give you a quick glimpse of what is coming up. The 2nd of December 2020. Bijal Seth is asking, when is this program? It's on the 2nd of December 2020. It's a day-long online streamed event, and I recommend strongly that you come in on board. One of the things not to miss at the event, other than the learning opportunities you have, is to be able to attend, as part of the conference, a very outstanding and exclusive play called The Blind Spot, Diversity Inclusion Diaries. I recommend strongly that you come in, you get a play to attend as well for free. The Embodiment of D&I musical melange, musical show in the evening, which is a true embodiment of diversity and inclusion. Move forward. Quick glimpse into what this seminar has for you. We start the day with voices from the Gemba, and we have CHROs from leading organizations who will be presenting their diversity and inclusion stories and what it takes to be able to drive a diversity inclusion agenda within the organization. And you have Adil Malia and Srinivas Venkatraman of Illumine anchoring this with heads of D&I and heads of CHROs, heads of HR of companies like Yum Brands and the Taj Group and Tata Consulting Services, and a whole lot of others. We are also getting some of the winning organizations, CHROs, to be able to join this. This is going to be a very, very vibrant group, people who do real solid work on the ground, and great opportunity for everyone to be able to learn from them. Move forward. We've got a whole host of international thought leaders and practitioners in the space of diversity and inclusion, this time talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the power of D&I in building a just society. This is a never seen before session where we talk about the origin of diversity and inclusion in terms of being able to create a more just and equitable society. And we've got a whole host of very impressive thought leaders and speakers from across the world, literally from the US, from the UK, from South Africa, from Spain, joining us to be able to share their insights. A lot of them global heads of various organizations. Move forward. We've got stories of mythology, the evolution of diversity and inclusion from mythology, and a whole group of NGOs in a concurrent session. So you can choose which one you want to attend. And this is representing everyone, including Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, who leads the transgender movement in India, and a lot of other people who are doing absolutely outstanding work in the specially able space and in the women empowerment space and so on and so forth. And in a conference session, you get to speak to experts in the space of mythology who will tell you the origin of diversity and inclusion through different kinds of mythologies, including Indian mythology. Move forward. We've got a networking lunch series called Food for Thought series, because this is an online event. So we're going to get you to use your lunch break well, not only to be able to network with people, but to also attend a learning session. We have 4 concurrent sessions this time, all being led by heads of D&I of various organizations. This is a not to be missed, and you should absolutely be there to be able to attend it. On the back of that, we've got Leo Girl Productions Diversity and Inclusion Diaries, which is the blind spot play, and we recommend strongly that you come in and you enjoy the insights from this very powerful play. Move forward. And then, of course, we've got the best practices winning organizations in 2 concurrent sessions. You get to be able to listen to the winning organizations in every of the 13 categories. A lot of the individual categories as well being represented here. And they're in concurrent sessions anchored by Dr. Prince Augustine and Dr. Akhil Basrai. You have access to the winning organizations and their winning entries, so that you have the insights from the people who know how to get this right. The embodiment of music, before we have jury voices and the best diversity and inclusion practice of Asia award ceremony. So I took the effort to take you through this so that you don't miss this. There are a huge amount of group discounts going. It's free for academicians. If you're individual sponsor, you have huge discounts to be able to come in and attend this. So do not miss this. And, speak to us if you really want to attend this conversation, and reach out to Rupali or Prudel if you'd like a delegate pass to be able to attend this. 2nd December 2020, block your calendars and make sure that you're there. All right. So I think with that, let's come to what it is that we're here today for, which is to be able to talk about, can you move forward, the role of women in the new economy. And we picked this because of a whole lot of reports that we've been hearing about, particularly, coming out of United Nations Women for India reports, some of the reports in the press, and the rest of that. And of course, we're all consultants. We run a forum. So we have insights to organizations who have been struggling in some forms with being able to integrate or continue integrating women and their representation in the workforce. This has been a mixed bag of experiences for women, really. And at this stage, I'm really excited to be able to introduce our panel who's going to come in to be able to decipher this theme. This is like for everyone else, this is these times, the COVID times, are very testing times. It has impacted lives and livelihoods across the world. This is easily the most disruptive time. Spiritual leaders describe this as global awakening time. And so this is an opportunity as much as it is a challenge. And I think we're here today to be able to decipher the theme around the integration of women, representation in the workforce, opportunities for women, whether these times have taken the whole movement back. Has it accentuated more inequalities? Are there opportunities that we can still explore in terms of how it is that we can keep the momentum going? As a country, we don't fare very well in terms of women representation in the workforce. So there's a lot of work to be done. We can ill afford to be able to move back. And so today's conversation is about exploring what has been the downside of these times and what the opportunities are for us as a community that is concerned about women representation in the workforce to be able to continue the momentum going. So I think with that, I'm very delighted to be able to introduce 2 very iconic HR leaders, both very passionate about women and women empowerment and leadership and equality, and which is the reason why they're here. So Dr. Akhil Basrai, Nadil Malia, both of them also part of our governing council at the Women Leadership Forum of Asia. I'm very delighted, someone making a debut here with us today. And I must admit that we've been wanting him on our panels for a while now, and it is quite coincidental how it is that we finally got him on board to be able to come in today. Alok Shiopurkar, I know a lot of you may have heard him on other panels. He's a very sought after speaker and also very talented HR professional. He's the Executive Vice President and HR Head of HDFC Asset Management Company. We have today with us somebody who's, a very dear associate because she started her career with us many years ago. And of course, we've all moved our own way since. Priyanka Mohanty, when Adil and I worked for the SR Group, she was part of one of the group companies called Aegis, which is now StarTech. And Priyanka is the Vice President, Global Corporate HR and Global Diversity Inclusion. It's always fabulous to see people who started their careers with you to be able to be doing so well and flourishing so excellently and doing such a fabulous job. So we're very excited to have Priyanka Mohanty on board today. Shalini Singh, Chief Corporate Communication and Sustainability Head at Tata Power. Interestingly, while Shalini comes from the corporate communication stream, which has, I think huge entanglements with what it is that HR attempts to do with an organization. Sometimes the corporate communications people do a better job with their sheer excellence and their passion. And Shalini appears to be one of them because she does a fab job with leading diversity and inclusion within Tata Power. She's a very experienced person, and we're very excited that she's on board today. Ansu Gupta is a DNI activist. She's an evangelist for women, does lots of work around domestic violence against women. So we're very excited. Ansu has very, very deep experience with real issues at ground level. And we're very excited to be able to have Ansu come in and share her views with us today. So I'm going to request all the panelists to please, sort of switch on your videos, please, and your mics, and just make sure that that's on. I'm going to periodically share some data. So we might have our presentation till such time as I call out the question, and then I'm going to ask them to stop sharing so that the audience has an opportunity to actually see you. So I think with that, thank you one more time for being here. We're going to start the conversation. Audience, keep this vibrant by being able to share your views and your comments on the chat. We will periodically get you in. I promise to be able to ask you some audience poll questions so that we get your point of view in as well. Also, continue asking questions. Use the Q&A tab to be able to ask the very learned and passionate panelists your questions. So I think with that, the panel, I'm going to try and share some of my insights and my first question, after which I will ask Rupali to stop sharing. So Rupali, want to move forward? Yes. So in a very recent message, the United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres urged governments to put women and girls at the center of their efforts to recover from COVID-19. And that starts with women as leaders. And there's a reason for why he's articulating that. And he says with equal representation and with decision-making powers. And I think the reason for saying this, or even why should he even have to say that please start this with women as leaders, is because there is a general sense, and while in India, concrete data or research data is not in, but that this movement the world over has kind of taken the women's move, the entire disruption experience to COVID-19 has somehow, accentuated inequalities for women, accentuated gender roles for women, and somehow appears to have taken the movement in terms of representation, the workforce back. In many ways, which are also incidental to the pandemic and the situations that have ensued post the pandemic. I'm going to go forward to be able to share some more. Go forward, Rupali. So we're talking about whether be it disruptions of livelihoods which may have happened, which have happened for both men and women, but they seem to have impacted women very severely. Precarious support systems in terms of being able to actually support particularly women who belong to the marginalized communities, new uncertainties that have emerged around women and their safety, heavier burden of unpaid labor, and so on. And by unpaid labor, we're talking about the work that gets done, which is not paid for in terms of home, in terms of childcare, in terms of elder care, and the rest of that, which further disempowers women. Move forward, I'm going to ask the very first question here. But before that, one revelation for me as well is that, interestingly, the healthcare workforce the world over, and the number for India is very close to this, is that has almost 70% of women. And so naturally, this pandemic has put them in the biggest predicament in terms of risks of their own lives. Female healthcare workers globally find their distress compounded as they are also primary caregivers at home, for spouses, for children, for elderly, and while also they have taken on and appear to have taken on disproportionate housework, which often ends up becoming an additional burden even for professional women. Move forward. And so there's also a sharp rise in domestic violence globally, which puts women and girls at the receiving end of both physical and emotional abuse. You now have women available captive, very often with their offenders, with no kind of sort of support available to them, without severe repercussions if they went out seeking that support or help. So I do know that in some parts, and particularly the urban areas, there has been some degree of reaching out in terms of hotlines and in terms of emergency lines and whatnot for women. Even the police has a hotline which women can reach out to, and so on. Having said that, this still makes women extremely vulnerable to domestic violence as they're trapped in places, oftentimes with their abusers. So move forward, and I'm going to ask you the question, and then we can move over and you can stop sharing the presentation. My very first question to the panelists is, given the role played by women both as health workers, they continue playing the primary caregiver at home, coping with considerable increase in domestic violence. Would you agree that COVID times have actually further accentuated inequalities in many ways? So I'm going to try and get the panelists to be able to respond to this. We'll stop sharing, Rupali, and we try and get everyone on board. So welcome back. I'm going to direct this question first to Alok Chopurkar, because Alok, also have you on board for the first time, and I thought it's best to have a male respond to this question so we get a balanced perspective. So give me your, give me your view on whether you believe this may have happened. We don't have any concrete research data yet, because most forums say that they don't have it post-COVID-19. Even the census data is not available post-COVID-19. So this is essentially coming out of, we gleaned it from a whole lot of research insights, observations, people who research the space of women and women empowerment across different countries, who have this to say for women in India. So I want your reaction to that.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. And I also welcome participants. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I have little difference of opinion on the word post-COVID, because I still believe we are in COVID. So getting the spirit of your word, I would say last 3 months. So let's look at from June, July and August, not immediate last month, June, July and August. What has happened to the PF contribution? Okay, that is one big indicator. While an organized sector may not so get affected, but let's look at that. That's a sample tells us which way wind is blowing, right? So the contribution data compared to 1920, which is for last year same period versus this year. Okay, I think that gives us some good sample on this. So 1920, 25% was the participation of women at work. Okay, June 1990, 2019, 2020, participation was 25% in the PF contribution. This year it has gone down to 21%. Okay. Similarly, July, if we look at July, it was 24.5%. That means 5% basis point has come down. This year it was 21%. Okay. And now when you look at August, which is the reasonably recent, considering that we are still in October end, 23% was last year, and this year is 20%. So this is happening to the organized workplace. Now, obviously, this tells a very deep story that yes, women are being discouraged to go to work. Work from home has given some window, but every organization is not so well organized, and people are reluctant to let go their women family members to workplace. So it will be fair hypothesis or assumption, even in want of a proper data, to make that yes, it has further got worsened. The situation was never good any which way. But due to pandemic, it has become far, far more challenging, and women are facing the biggest brunt of this COVID situation. So this is where I'll take a pause, obviously.
Yeah, but thank you for bringing in that Provident Fund data in, and it's kind of more indicative. I also just want to point out that a very significant number of those contributors would be women who work for government.
Yes.
Because I think that a very significantly large number is actually women from government. So I was just thinking about that as I was listening to your data. But thanks for bringing in data to be able to have a more kind of objective perspective of what's really going on. I'm going to pass this question over to Shalini. Shalini, your insights on this theme.
So, thank you, Sujaya, and a very warm welcome to all the participants. Uh, what I want to mention is that before I get into whether women are affected the worst, I also want to take this opportunity to talk about what a wonderful job women have been doing for pandemic and have in this entire crisis, and how countries which are led by women prime ministers have been the most successful countries who have handled this crisis well, with decisiveness and with lots and lots of courage. And Jacinda, of course, who I admire, is one person who ranks the top of the whole debate. So the UN Women Report that Sujaya you mentioned very clearly talks about that women. There is no doubt that women are the most affected and are facing the brunt of this right at the rural level. There's a digital divide now which they're facing. Also at the low-paid workers, domestic workers who have not been, daily wage earners who have not been able to go back to work. Also, from the backgrounds, affirmative action backgrounds, where they're also facing a lot of domestic violence. Since the men are not having jobs, there's a lot of domestic violence which is also being seen, and also taking a high risk of transmission of COVID-19, because 70% of the health workers, like you mentioned, are women in most of the countries and even in our own country. So they are actually vulnerable as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think good points, and I think that I think you've also accentuated the part about the women who led well through this crisis. So we'll revisit that point. Shalini will come back to that. Let me try and at this stage bring in Priyanka. Priyanka, what are your views on this?
Yes. First of all, welcome to all the participants, and thank you, Sujaya, for this opportunity. So my point of view is also similar. I also think that COVID-19 has actually accentuated this gender gap, and we have all this, statistics in public domain, which help us understand the participation of female in the workforce. And if I can briefly say, I think that there are typically two reasons why this gap has, further widened. So first reason is, of course, and you already mentioned it, that's the unpaid care. There's a sort of disproportionate, I would say, responsibility of the unpaid care work, that is handled by males and females. And that's, of course, we can debate on that. But, as of now, the disproportionate, there is a sort of imbalance between this unpaid care when we say, taking care of the sick, taking care of the elderly, or taking care of the children for that matter. Second reason, I believe, is the occupational clusters. For example, women, if you see, while the participation is there, let's say 47% of our workforce, there is some participation, but they are actually clustered in certain occupations. So if you look at hospitality, or if you look at recreation, arts, or in fact, we look at nursing. So the tilt is, of female population towards those segments of areas of work. That is one of the reasons why there are also other frontliners in this. So even if you take the case of COVID, more than 70% of workforce, they are in the nursing population, women, and that's what creates, more risk for them during this COVID-19. So these are the two reasons I thought is important to mention.
Great stuff. So let me just bring in Ansu here. Ansu, I'm really keen to bring you here because I know you do a lot of work in the space of violence against women. And this has very starkly come out as another challenge that women have been experiencing during these times. Do you want to comment on particularly that part?
We have definitely seen an increase in the cases. In fact, we started a few special initiatives right at the time when the lockdown started. In this horrible anticipation that some of the women who were able to get out earlier were now actually confined in their houses with, at most of the time, with their abusers. So there was bound to be a spike in such cases. Initially, there was a spike in the calls that we were receiving on the helplines as well, and it's not just an Indian trend; it was a trend that was noticed all over the world. And even though that initial spike might have come down, the cases have become far more severe and deep. And some of the initiatives that we have started are taking care of some of those cases. But apart from that, this discussion about having women come back to work, or will they be able to come back to work, or will they not be able to come back to work? I think there are two aspects to it. One, which is the work from home economy, if I can call it that, and the other is actually, bringing people back to the office scenario, factory scenario as it used to be earlier. So I think there might be a blessing in disguise here. While we don't have the numbers and from the data that Alok also shared earlier, there definitely seems to be a dip, but that could also be because of the larger dip, not just because of the women contribution. But there could be a blessing here, in the sense that a lot of organizations are now gearing up for work from home, which could be good for women, both younger and the women who are already working. It might be easier. There might be a new set of roles that women can play, new set of career opportunities that women might be able to make use of. If we can handle the digital divide, I can see that there are a lot of initiatives from the government also in skilling up. A lot of private organizations and like Microsoft, etc., LinkedIn, and also the government agencies who are trying to do these MOOCs, the online courses, so that women can get new skills and be able to at least either skill up or maybe change their course of the career completely. I think, from the past, wherever there has been a calamity of this scale, of a large scale, I think women have always managed to kind of come up on tops in terms of the numbers have kind of always gone up after the initial dip, and that I would see necessary for the revival of the economy also. So I definitely see that there will be a lot of government initiatives, and there will be a lot of initiatives from the organizations to handle this. And I think once we have the data, and once we are actually post COVID, we are not yet post COVID, and kind of start seeing a little stability, I am optimistic, positive, hopeful, that we will actually be seeing a better situation than we had earlier.
Great stuff. So let me bring in Adil here. Adil, what is your view on this question?
So good evening, and thank you. Being the fourth speaker, I might just end up repeating a few things that already these speakers have spoken. But as always, I would want to be a little different from the views that have been already expressed. So number one is, I would say, can we use the anagram of COVID a little more differently? In the sense that, can we say, can one view inclusivity and diversity differently? And if you were to look at the anagram of COVID from that perspective, can we look at or view inclusivity and diversity differently? There is always a way we can do it. It is a fact that, for the last 5 to 7 years, whenever we have put in all the efforts, and not only us, all the other groups which are working in this space have tried to put in all the efforts to try and create an equal world, I don't think we have really seen very meaningful differences coming as a result of all of that. So if you look at the kind of statistics, even in the last 5 years, all the energy that we put in really did not give us the kind of results that we ideally would have loved to see in terms of employment of women and things like that. But unfortunately, the coming of COVID has further deteriorated the situation. So whilst we could not get positive effect, this has created a negative spin to the whole situation. And therefore, it is time right now for us to view COVID very differently as an opportunity and try and see what can we do differently. Because, say, look at what is really emerging. What are some of the reasons why people were very hesitant to employ women? One, of course, is that they couldn't travel all those distances, and with the family around, they could not put in the energy to travel. Home care was required. There was domesticity to be taken care of, parental protection, postnatal presence, and also the monthly periods of women which stopped them from going to work, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, these were all the reasons which were wrongly, not rightly, wrongly positioned as reasons why industry was not employing women. Now, my question is, all of us during the last 6 to 7 months have experienced an opportunity that none of these reasons which we have been putting forward as reasons to not employ women or reasons why industry was not employing women have all got neutralized, because people have all experienced that work from home is not one of those episodal days when you suddenly wanted to work from home and things like that, but there is a meaningful opportunity to redesign your business organization such that you do not really require physical presence of all these people at the same work physical location, and actually work can go on without any of these people being present out there. Now, this is an opportunity, because these were the reasons which we did not allow engagement and involvement and employment of women. And now technology has given us the experience to say this is bogus. Actually, people can work. So therefore, can we really, in light of the current situation, rather than lamenting the unfortunate impact it has had, say, can we really use this as an opportunity, adversity as an opportunity to create a tipping point movement for employment of women in the industry, much better than what we have experienced?
Good point. And I think we're going to bring this up when we talk about opportunities in the market for women to be able to even work from home. And Atul, as usual, you've kind of brought in the spin on something that we picked up as a theme during the lockdown, which is this actually an opportunity to employ more women? So I'm glad that you're saying the same thing. Now, I'm going to, at this point, take an audience poll. So I'm going to request the team, and Akhil, we are absolutely coming back to you. I'm just going to take an audience poll. They've been quiet for a while. I want to be able to pull the audience in to be able to answer a question for us. So can we have the first audience poll question up, please? Yeah, keep the first audience poll question up. It come up on your screen. Please respond in yes or no. My question to you is, do you agree that the COVID-19 situation has made it more challenging for women to remain empowered and employed? Do you agree that the COVID-19 situation has made it more challenging for women to remain empowered and employed? What's your own experience? What do you think? So a yes or a no, we'll give you 30 seconds to respond, and let's try and see what has been your own experience. Has this actually created more challenges? And there might be some hopeful solutions, but I'm asking you in terms of what do you think has really happened? Seconds to respond and then submit. So hit that button at the bottom saying submit, and then of course send it forward. Rupali, do we have the analysis? Can you put that out? Let's see what came out of that. Okay, so you have like a staggering 85% saying yes, that this has in fact created impact. So most of the audience seems to believe that this has impacted women and their empowerment and their employment in general within society. So thank you for that. And I think with that, I'm going to move this forward to
yeah, but
Akhil.
Sujaya, it will be curious at some point of time to listen to the logic of the 14.7% who seem to be saying no, it does not have an impact.
So I think we'll take that up right now since Adil has brought it up, which is use the chat box for the remaining 15% who did not agree to be able to put out why you believe that this has not been a challenging time or it has not adversely impacted employment or empowerment for women. So please take to the chat box and put it out. We're interested to be able to know your perspective. There's no one right answer to this question, by the way. So we're excited that there's 15% who believe that they're not, and we'd like to know why. So please take to the chat box. Meanwhile, I'm going to move forward in the conversation, and I'm going to move to the next question and ask Akhil a question this time. So Akhil, typically, if you look at the numbers, these times have derailed careers. They have dried up opportunities. The Indian Express just a couple of days ago carried out an extensive article on the number of job losses, how the festive season that's coming up is not going to mean a great festive season. Many people who've lost their jobs and still need to pay their rents, their electricity bills, and their children's school fees. And that a lot of people plan to sell their wives' jewelry or any other resources that they have at this point in time to be able to try and fund their living expenses, since they do not have that kind of cushioning that comes with savings, which are now all dried up 6 or 7 months hence. So rather gloomy stories there, but they had a lot of details on the number of people for whom opportunities have dried up and no new jobs have come in. So especially in a scenario like this, do you agree that this pulls the whole women's movement back in a way, we already have a declining representation of women in the workforce in the last 10 years. As you know, when the men also have been losing jobs and there are lesser jobs in the market, do you believe that this automatically is going to have a ramification in terms of women representation because there are lesser new jobs coming out in the market? And I know that there is a positive outlook towards jobs eventually coming back, and I have access to a couple of those reports. But notwithstanding that, none of those reports have any specific mentions of opportunities for women in particular. So I want to be able to get your perspective on this. Do you think that in general, jobs drying up and lesser jobs in the market, number of job losses, and these are the ground level realities that we're all experiencing, enough numbers to be able to support that? What is your sense in terms of how, and logically it would impact the women, but what's your sense on this? Do you think it's going to take our movement back already with declining representation of women in the workforce?
Thank you, Sujaya, for having me over. I look at this issue that you are referring to in two dimensions: the India women and Bharat women. And I'm not trivializing this.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous and also type of industry that there is an overemphasis of women in certain industry, organized industry, education, healthcare. And if you look at Bharat part of India, the rural part and semi-urban part, that has been tremendously affected during COVID. If you see the data on migration, something like 38 to 39% of jobs in these two sectors have been lost. And the unorganized sector like agriculture, construction workers, and sex workers has been affected because the migration has impacted women more than men. And women have gone back to the villages, leaving the jobs behind. But in the rural India type of situation, India, not Bharat, but India, the situation is slightly opposite. You look at some of the Naukri.com advertisements that are coming up for online jobs, women preferred. So there the graph is going up. Numbers may be small, but the graph is certainly going up. In the very established industries, women have not been adversely affected at all. There has been no sending of women off roles as is widely believed. So I belong to Adil, to that 15% of the population who answered no. And I feel that it is, let's not get into this victim syndrome that all women are being victimized because of COVID. Opportunities are happening based on the business pull. Industries like IT, ITES, online marketing, sales, services, which are predominantly home-driven, are attracting more women for the jobs and securing jobs for the women. But yes,
so let me nuance the question, Akhil, and pass it over to Alok to be able to respond to this, which is, for example, the returnee women or women who had taken maternity breaks during this time and looking to go back. I mean, they're going to be lower in the stacking order, aren't they? If there are going to be unemployed but experienced men who are available in the market. So we're also asking from that nuanced perspective that women, particularly the returnee women who've taken breaks or sabbaticals to be able to take care or look after, do their chances become more bleak in the environment?
That will happen with two coincidences. Women who took maternity break and now the industry has collapsed and they don't have vacancies will certainly be the first target because they will not be asked to come back or there may be resistance to come back. And that's a reality. But it's not because they are women. Yeah. It's not because they are women. Anybody who had left, men included, for a long sabbatical or taken a big gap or not attended work, will be asked to go or not to come back. So I think the business reasons for reducing headcount, if it comes, it will affect both men and women. And I don't think that any industry, at least in the area that I mentioned about so-called semi-educated, educated women workforce, are going to discriminate to say because she's a woman, I'm going to reduce her headcount and preserve men headcount. I don't see any anecdotal evidence so far, any industry practicing that. And I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, but Akhil, it is not fair that a woman who is on a maternity leave should be the first one to be targeted amongst the list of people. And if her being on a maternity leave is the only cause, then certainly it is something which is not credible and acceptable.
I agree with you, Adil, and I don't think companies will be so insensitive that a woman who went on maternity leave will be asked not to come back because there's a headcount reduction. I don't think it will happen. But
I think
if
there
the
have been
headcount
instances of that
reduction,
happening. Adil and I, know of a couple of cases like that where women who went on maternity leave, these are large organizations who didn't want them back after the maternity leave, especially as their conclusion of maternity leave is during the lockdown period. So I think in pockets that has happened, but I think I was talking about more in the context of
I think,
opportunity.
Sujaya,
I certainly-
Good job
convenience.
opportunities, really.
There's
I
a
certainly
convenience
hope-
managers are taking convenience that because she's physically not around, it's easy to handle her. But that is, I think, a minority, a micro minority of managers who take it convenient, and I don't think the organization would stand up to support it if they were pulled up in public.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that it is not done very overtly because it's illegal actually.
Yeah.
Absolutely
I think
illegal.
that, yeah.
And what Adil said, Ansu, that you have to have a job for a woman. Her lien on the job is protected when she's out on maternity leave. No organization can say, oh, because you were away, don't come back.
Right.
She is on par with any other employee of the company. How can a company take a stance like that? And Sujaya and I have supported organizations and told them that this is a mistake you are doing. You can't be doing that.
Right.
In any case, I mean, that kind of...
We were running a pro bono HR advisory service, all of us together, Akhil, Adil, I, and for a whole lot of companies during the lockdown. And some of these came up with these kind of queries. And there was more than one actually instance where there was a query on what do? We don't want the women who are on maternity break to come back. So
that kind of bias has always existed against very young women about to get married, recently married, or pregnant. That kind of bias informally has always existed. But I think terminating them like this it's definitely illegal, especially if it's a listed company. If
yes.
it's,
Absolutely.
So women who are migrating back to villages in this organized sector like education, healthcare, will find it very difficult to reclaim their job which they have left. That will happen. Because the vacuum will be filled up by people who are available, these are men. So it's unfortunate that the women went out of family necessity and compulsions, and when they come back, those jobs will be less than what they were available when they were here.
Agree with that.
Right. Alok, I wanted your view on it. I was trying to get you into the conversation. So do tell us what you think.
So, statistically, let me represent a little bit of Bharat. I like the analogy. So 66% of physical work is done by women. 50% food is grown by women. They only have 10% share in the earning. Similarly, significantly low number of women, in spite of government's incentive to pay the reduced registration, the property holding is also significantly low, especially in India. Now, coming back to maternity aspect. So we have just touched the surface. I will tell you where sometimes even finest organization take a decision, I will not say advantage, decision to give a break or end the job of a woman. So let's say after 6 months of maternity leave, now she has exhausted earlier leave because 6 month maternity starts much before that. Now the LWP has begun. And now there's a kid, okay? Nuclear family, there's nobody to care for. And that's the place where the chemistry comes to play. How the relationship is with the 1 or 2 level up and so on and so forth. And then the exigency and business emergency, and that's where the cord is cut of employment. So nobody's terminating while on leave. I don't think reasonably organized organizations will ever do that. Though the percentage is very, very low, and some of the large organizations will not do it, they will give 3 months LWP or so. But if there is an opportunity in all the equations of chemistry is not good, the opportunity will be leveraged to end the employment. That's number one. So not illegal, yet somebody has achieved the objective. Number two, what is happening since I come from a financial service industry? Now, let's say somebody, a girl or a woman is based at Alwar, but goes back to her place in Jaipur. Okay. Now I have opened back my offices. Now I want her to go back to Jaipur to Alwar. Now going to Alwar in these times is very, not only for her, but also to family. Right? Now this is where the accommodation of requests will not happen. So this is one more factor where multi-location, multi-geography, sales, distribution, organization in financial BFSI service organization, a flashpoint comes and not very many organizations are willing to give a look or accommodate in the location because there is always a manpower constraint. And any which way in larger branch also you are working by rotation or working with a reduced manpower. And being a service organization, we all know the manpower cost forms a very significant percentage of the overall operational cost. So these are some of the weak points which further worsens the situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. I think it's time for me to be able to bring in some really relevant and very useful points that are being made on the chat and draw your attention to that. We have Yashwant Chavan who's saying, thank you, Adil, for your insights. It is imperative for leaders to rethink their business models and integrate inclusivity as a part of business strategy for building a larger growth mindset. There's Girish Malhotra saying this work from home has also given opportunity for female employees to save time for travel and at the same time spend time with family while working and not to forget keep their jobs. Kushbu says able to manage the work and house time. It has given an opportunity to think about more flexible work time for women as well. Kritika Natarajan is saying that I am Kritika. I work for Tech Mahindra while working from home was seen as trouble earlier. Now I see IT companies see it as possible. So women who need working from home option due to personal reasons can still make it, provided that they are effective, also that it saves time in terms of productivity. Again, more people saying work from home gives better work-life balance, flexibility in terms of timings. Dr. Bijal safe is saying more of sharing responsibilities has been observed at home. We're going to come to this point in a bit. Chaitanya is saying that I think the impact is not only women, but overall workforce, irrespective of gender, being affected. And this situation has created opportunities for women with work from home. But as there is an adverse effect for women who are in the blue collar category. Annapurna is saying that a lot of women have been facing harassment in different forms. For example, she's referring to women on maternity leave not being called back to work, transfers, less pay, compulsion to come to office. I'm only going to say, Annapurna, I think the men have experienced this as well, if you're calling it a harassment, in terms of losing their entire salary, having pay cutoffs, sometimes not being called back in the first wave, left until the last wave, until the unforeseeable future work from home, all of those challenges as well. Girish is saying work from home has also made it possible for women from B-Town to also integrate into the mainstream corporate world. So now you don't have to be in a big city to be able to get your opportunities. You can get them from anywhere. So these are a lot of possibilities and optimism, and it's fabulous to see that. Now I'm going to ask a very brass tacks question to everyone here, which is what is your view on what happened to what we call unpaid work at home? Yeah, do you agree? The report, the United Nations report, and a couple of other reports mentioned saying that burden was also experienced by women, which is it has increased the burden and accentuated the inequalities. And I'm going to share an anecdotal story here. So I was having a conversation with a set of senior people in an organization, and there was obviously everyone was work from home, so it was an online conversation. And somewhere the conversation veered towards, has everyone now learned housework? So, are you sharing, because there were also domestic help not allowed in the initial stages of the lockdown. So obviously families had to take care of their own homes. So there's some conversation that veered towards whether senior managers were helping their wives at home, and are they ensuring that they take on the dishes or they take on the washing machine, or they're helping children, whatever it might be. Have they started doing that? And there's an argument there around the fact that, we're continuing to work from home with the breadwinners. They are home keepers. So it's their job to do their job while we're doing our job. So where is the question of us learning housework? There's a bit of an argument. Not all men agreed with what was happening, but a very significantly large number believe that they didn't see a reason for. They're saying we're long hours on our machines. We are the breadwinners. We're doing our part, our share of the job. The women need to do their share of the job. So this is anecdotal, but I want to know from you, what is your own sense? The report says that this entire pandemic situation has ended up overburdening women with housework, have actually accentuated inequalities, and have accentuated gender roles within homes, and overall taken this whole equality movement back, because women for most part of the pandemic have not had help with overburdened housework. What is your reaction to that? I want to try and get some feedback from you on whether you believe this has somebody on the group, and that's a woman who's saying that actually it has improved the situation at home. But I want to get the panelists to respond to this. Yeah, go ahead, Akhil, please go
whatever
ahead.
the data is, I feel exactly opposite. Sudha. If at all, one thing that has come out good out of COVID crisis and working from home is that both men and women have come on an equal level field. And that's a reality. All these myths that we had that women cannot work late hours or long hours or can't travel, or their personal life and family, looking after family will clash with their work, has been completely obliterated. That doesn't hold ground anymore. Second, working from home has brought about a sense of responsibility and shared responsibility in many of the reluctant males also. Very reluctantly, but somehow it has now become a pattern. And I don't think there's a disadvantage of women. On the contrary, I feel women are better off.
Akhil, this is Bharat view or India view?
Pardon?
This is your Bharat view or India view?
Well, I rather talk about India group, because Bharat mein kya hota hai ki wahan pe the women will always
because
be
again the same thing happens. You are talking about the 10% people staying in cities like Bombay, Delhi, etc. Metrosexual men trying to help their women is a different story. And then there is a larger India which believes it is beyond their levels to even put up a broom in their hand and do something in the house.
Adil, we used to segregate Bharat and India in two parts. I would now put it in three parts. Much larger chunk of between Bharat and India, midtown cities where maximum jobs are happening online, is actually places like Jaipur, Udaipur, Trivandrum. And so that particular population is actually benefiting women more than before COVID. As a result of that, more opportunities will come up for women in those towns, and forget the sexist town like Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, Chennai, etc. But the middle level town, mid towns, and big town cities, as we call it, are going to be very positively affecting women employment.
Yeah, Akhil, be careful, with this kind of a logic, you might just get labeled as the Tugde gang or something.
Okay, I'm going to try and put this out as an audience poll to the audience. I'm already getting a lot of responses on the chat box, but let's get all of you to be able to respond to this question. Can I have the next poll question up, please? Rupali, can you help me with this? Yeah. Do you agree that the work from home situation has increased the burden on women and accentuated inequalities? Do you agree the work from home situation has increased the burden on women and accentuated greater inequalities? Choose a yes or a no and submit. So we take about 10 seconds, and Rupali, can you try and post the analysis you've got? Okay, we've got a 75% saying yes at this time, and about 25% saying no. The ones who don't agree, I'll be happy to be able to hear from you on why you think so, and you're free to your to your opinion. And be delighted to know that there are instances where you've seen, or a very significant number of 25% is 1/4 of you who believe that people have actually helped with housework. I have a few comments here which I'm going to try and call out. And Girish says work from home has also made it possible for women to come in. He says, I don't agree that it was only women who had to face salary cuts. It was the same for everyone. He mentions that. But Roshan says women have actually been additionally burdened with housework since their children's spouses is also other family members, as in joint family households. Geeta says, yes, family has been cooperative and my son has realized the importance of contributing. And how with housework, burden on women is still there as expectations are more from women. But saving on travel time has helped women in terms of work from home. Roshan Setna says are the people at home throughout these lockdown periods for more than 7 months now. And Girish says, agree, a lot of misunderstanding was cleared, wherein at one end, men understood the amount of work females need to do, and similarly, women of the house also understood the reason why men put in such long hours in the office. So there's been more understanding between the genders, is what he's saying. More empathy, more understanding, more sensitization. Prasanna says that my ex-companies with whom I've been in touch have all deducted salaries across the organization. So this is equally impacting everyone. Sharon is saying initially there was an apprehension, but over a period of time, there's a lot of sharing happening, but have had to ask for it in the beginning, and now there is sharing happening more. So I'm sure Sharon's trying to say women ask for more help if you really need the help. But by and large, most of you saying that women are more burdened than men are, especially with housework, and that accounts for unpaid work, by the way. Again, accentuates inequalities for women. Vivek says he's been helping his wife with household chores, so many hurrahs and kudos to Vivek. Pradeep Agarwal says that sharing reduces the burden. So we have many emancipated men here in the audience who saying they have actually helped their wives.
Yeah, because their wives are listening to the webinar.
Right. So I think with that, I'm going to move to my last question, which is ever so important, especially in an evolving society. Do you believe men as allies can help reduce the impact of inequalities and opportunities for women in the new economy? And others spoke about so many more opportunities and how we can leverage the work from home and the rest. What's your opinion about men being allies to be able to actually use this work from home situation to be able to give women more opportunities at work, especially the returnee women, so that they're encouraged to come back? I do know of men that I have spoken to who are senior leaders within organizations who have invested in personal calls to parents to urge them to send their daughters back to work. And I know that people have invested in all organizations have invested in all kinds of outreach programs to bring women back to work. So which is wonderful. I want to know from a men as allies intervention, because I know some of the organizations are exploring that. I want you to be able to give some wind to that intervention, to be able to say, how can men help women during these times to become more prominent, more successful in the new economy? So I'm going to ask the men to go on this. So, Akhil, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it is a responsibility because no men are doing a favor to anybody by doing this. It is an organizational responsibility. It's also the way you manage the organization through what Adil calls very rightly inclusive behavior, and create a culture and attract talent. At the end of the day, the job of any person leadership is to make sure that you have good quality talent in the organization that meets the organization objective, men or women. Now, men have to play a role, but I think more than that, sometimes women have to also understand to be their own champions.
Yeah.
In reality, many women actually resent other women going up the organization. How harsh it sounds is all right, but I don't think women are their best friends many times. I'm not generalizing it, but sometimes women, when they reach their own level of levels in organization, do not actually help other women come up. And that itself becomes a roadblock. So I totally agree, and I think I've always advocated and had my way that equal representation of women in organizations that are led has, and if you insist, and most important, if you measure, don't have to say, oh, I believe in this. You have to show, like in recruitment, for example, some of the things that we introduced, for example, tell me how many CVs did you receive from women? How many interviews were held? How many offers were made? The moment you start measuring, the representation goes. But again, Sujaya, it's not the number of women in the organization. If you see a pyramid and you break it into 4 parts, most of the women are in level 1 or level 2. I think the responsibility of male leaders is to ensure that the glass ceiling is broken and opportunities are given to women to climb up to decision-making level. The more decision maker women are there, the better for womanhood overall, because there'll be a lot of personal empathy to understand what they have gone through and how it can be overcome. So I feel it's a joint responsibility. Initially, the male have to take the lead. After that, women must take over It cannot depend on the male part in the organization to do everything for them.
Right. I'm going to ask Priyanka, and then I'm going to move over to Shalini. I want to know, within your own organizations, you're with StarTech and you're doing brilliant work in the space of diversity and inclusion. What work are you all doing to be able to make sure that women come back, or you don't lose momentum for the women's movement within your organization? Do you have a Men as Allies program within your organization? Can you help the audience understand how they can actually go about this?
Sujay, actually, it's a very good question, because day before yesterday, we finished compiling our HR plan, global HR plan. And there, in fact, it was a very conscious effort from our end to put, two initiatives of gender inclusivity. First is the project Second Innings, where, we are reintegrating females back into the workforce. And second is a certain percentage of women should be represented at the top management. And these two, these are just not part of the HR plan. We made sure that they are actually signed by all the business leaders, because ultimately it has to be driven from them. So apart from that, our CEO has also, to show his visible commitment, he's also signing the UNWP principle, the statement of support. So, and of course, the IBDN CII, which is Movement Towards Disability. So all these, and also another thing, Sujay, which I feel is, there are a lot more awareness which needs to be created. For example, I'll give a simple instance. A lot of people are aware of, let's say, a maternity, paternity leave. But apart from that, there are N number of regulations. For example, let's say in Philippines, we have the solo, the battered woman leave. In Canada, we have sexual violence leave or the domestic violence leave. Then there are a couple of countries, where we have adoption leave, or where we have a solo parent leave for that matter. So do people in the organization, are they aware of these benefits that exist? And these will actually help women and in fact men, to enable, women to have a better representation at the workplace, at the top management as well. So these are certain, simple examples I thought I'll just share with you.
Yeah, lovely. I'm going to move this over to Shalini. Shalini, what does Startup Power do to be able to enable women to still remain very prominent within the organization? And how do you have a men as allies, or men as diversity partners kind of an intervention within Tata Power?
Yes, we do have a Men as Allies, diversity partners, and we also do sensitivity, because we, sensitization of our level 2 and level 3 leaders, because it's a proven study that that women who don't progress up is largely because of their level 2 and level 3 managers, who are largely men or women in the organization. And therefore, that kind of sensitivity is very, very important. But let me talk about what Adil mentioned and what we have been able to do because of our innovative thinking during COVID. So during COVID, in some of the new locations like Odisha and other places, we have decided to open all women-run customer care centers. So we've taken a business decision that this is a good time to support women, and that's working out beautifully for us. Secondly, looking at the Bharat point of view, the rural women, we saw that they were able to produce, but they were not able to sell. They were struggling. We launched and bridged this digital divide and launched something called SaheliWorld.com, which has now become a bridge for not just our rural women, but many other rural women who can join in and sell their produce without, having us in between. So it's like the Amazon for rural women to come and sell their produce and look at. So I think it's a huge opportunity, not just within the organization, but outside of it, to look at what we can do for women. And our philosophy in all of this time is, what can we do more and more for women? We are also collecting, the mobile devices, second-hand mobile devices and tablets for our rural women in the community through our e-Daan program, which is running within the Tata Group, not just Tata Power. And as we are collecting, we are also trying to make sure that women who don't have access to internet and others get that access. We've done lots and lots of trainings for our rural artisans during this. We have used this as an opportunity to reskill them, to give them international orders. And you'll be surprised to know that now they are doing crochet work and garments for international swimwear and, those kind of, organizations. So I think let's not close our eyes to the global opportunity it opens. We talked lots about nationally, but we have a bunch of women artisans today who are talking to international buyers and organizations on their own. It's amazing. And I think that's where organizations, when they have their heart at the right place and when they support United Nations SDG 5, can really, really make a huge difference during this pandemic.
Super. I think this is just very
Heartwarming.
I'm going to come back to get one comment each from each one of you, but not before putting out an audience poll so that we can pull in the audience at this stage. Rupali, help me with the third question out to everybody in the audience. And this time around, asking everyone in the audience, do you believe men as allies can help reduce the impact of inequalities and opportunities for women in the new economy? May have an obvious answer, but we want to know what you think. We want to accentuate and underline men as allies as a significant focal point in terms of being able to not lose sight of the opportunities these times provide in terms of being able to integrate women and in fact to give momentum to the whole diversity agenda, especially gender diversity. I mean, surely, 48% of the population is not here to not get counted. And we still have very dismal numbers in terms of representation as compared to gender representation globally. We're also lag behind Asian countries and Southeast Asian countries on women representation in the workforce. So this is adversely impacting prosperity within families. And so I want you to be able to respond on whether men can become the allies to be able to make this possible. Yes, no. And let's see what you got, Rupali. And you have a staggering 98%. I know that was like an obvious answer, but thank you for being able to reiterate this. I want you to be able to take that away as an important thought as we try and close this conversation here today, but not without one important nugget or insight from each one who's on the panel here. These are very learned, very experienced, very passionate people on this theme. So I'm going to ask each one of you to be able to share one last point. What do you want to leave our audience with today as we talk about the role of women in the new economy? So we start with you, Alok.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to your earlier point, and I am reminded of that famous Prestige advertisement, "Jo बीबी से करे प्यार कैसे Prestige से कैसे करे इनकार." So I think that was a very nice reminder that we have to work shoulder to shoulder on all the fronts. Unfortunate reality is that less than 4% women CEOs are there in almost 1850 listed company in India. So that shows us the clear divide, and that's the mandate we have. I think we have miles to go ahead, and a lot of reports are showing decline in women participation in work, constant decline in last 20 years. So this is something worrisome. Many efforts, legislation like for dowry, we bought the legislation and that has incidents have at least got control, if not 100% cut. Some amount of education, as they say, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So I think education awareness followed with some amount of legislation should do some work towards arresting the spiral, if not bringing the normalcy and proper representation. So these were 2 points for me.
Yeah, so well said. Thank you so much, Alok, for being able to say that. I'm going to move this over to Shalini. Shalini, how would you like to leave your last comment on the role of women in the new economy? I think you're on mute, Shalini.
So I would like to say that while it's a tough situation for both men and women, I always take inspiration from women leaders like Jacinda Ardern and other places to see how these women have managed it so well. And they have created a very, very inspiring story for all of us to be able to move up to the leadership roles or to move up the ladder by decisiveness and compassion. And I think that's what we bring in. We bring in empathy, compassion, and we should not forget that every organization needs it. So resilience, is very, very important, whether we are a man or a woman. I think where men win is resilience. So let's remember the right people, the right role models to be resilient, to have the courage to move up the ladder, to also appreciate that many of us who are sitting here as women leaders are here because we were supported by very, very able men leaders.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I have never reported into a woman in my career. I have had very, very nice mentors and mentoring bosses. And I always hold them, responsible for my success and for being able to co-create my career with their guidance. So let's also remember that if we look at men as a support, they will rise up to it, because it is also up to us to put our faith in the right leadership to move and grow. So situations will come and go, but only tough people last. So let's remember that. And
Well
tough
said.
women.
Well said, Shalini. So I think with that, let's move on to Ansu. Ansu, what would you like to say to the audience as the last comment on this thing?
Yeah, so, just continuing this men as ally thread, I think this is a discussion that has been going on for many years, even before the pandemic. And I feel, all the factors because of which they don't support or they support, they continue to exist. And I'm not sure if the pandemic situation will change them in any way, if it hasn't changed so far. However, I feel that there's a lot that the government can do and that regulations can do. I think this is a great time for recognizing some of these productive efforts that women take, which are not exactly the jobs that women do at work. But I also know that in this last 6 months, so many women who had been thinking of starting their small enterprises, etc., from home, they have managed to do that, but there's no recognition of that. We know what the situation is on women entrepreneurship, or women working in fields, and so on and so forth. And I think some regulation to recognize that, some regulation to kind of bring that into the mainstream economy will be really helpful as well.
All right, great stuff. Okay, with that, let's try and bring in. I think Akhil. Akhil, do you want to give us your last
Yeah.
comment?
I would feel that there are two thoughts that I would share. One is regarding organization. I think what Alok mentioned about creating awareness is a very good, very, very sound advice. And although we've done it, but I think we've got to accelerate that. Second, you have to call out people who do not show inclusive and diverse friendly behavior. We shy away because of authority in the organization. And men, if they're not behaving themselves and showing behavior which is anti-DNI, I think they should be called out and they should be held accountable not to be in that direction. So then only I think some change will happen. And Ansu may put it in terms of legislation, I would say in terms of regulation within the organization, not law, but some sort of control must be there. The second point, Sujaya, is that we should start talking this at home. I would like my daughter to be independent, and I must tell her to be independent, must show behavior that she is independent and she can do what she wants as a woman. And I think that type of slowly nurturing children, boys or girls, to think in lines of respecting women or women to become independent will go a long way. It will take time, but it will have much longer lasting effect. And you met my daughter. Sometimes they take it too far. They become so independent that they think the whole world should revolve around them. But that's a different story. But the fact is that if she's taught to be independent, she's taught to think of herself and her opinion matters, she will grow up to be a woman who will feel that I do matter. And not a door.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, and how are we nurturing women at home to be able to stand up to these very trying circumstances? The good point there. Adil, we let you have the last word. Adil has a very bullish opinion on this subject. He's extremely optimistic of many things changing, and in fact, women rising to take their rightful place in the new economy. So I'm going to let him sort of end on a positive note. So over to you, Adil.
So I believe that what we have experienced during the COVID period is a black swan event. And I would say, don't play the old record. Dhun badal ke to dekhiye. Use adversity as an opportunity and tip the balance in favor of employment and engagement and involvement of women. it is very, very important that if the world is changing with a new paradigm, let's not play the old paradigm records. Let's sing a new song. Let's see how do we put in all the energy and strength to create a tipping point effect and create a better employment opportunity and situation for the women in India.
Right,
Right.
right.
Well
Great
said, Adil.
stuff. So thank you very much. I think this has been very useful. I do want to be able to not call out some of the comments we have in the Q&A segment, and we just call that out before we close. We have a couple of minutes more. We have Pradnya Manbar, and she says, most of the cases I've observed that consultancy firms and HR recruiters who reach out to women leadership roles, they themselves underestimate the female candidate's skills, experience, or candidature status, and not take the profiles ahead at all. So what you would want to change the way HR or consulting firms are handling the women leadership role openings? So anyone wants to respond to this? They're saying there's someone saying that the opportunities that are available. Pragya Manbar is saying that the opportunities available, the HR consulting firms or the recruiters themselves seem to be undermining the candidature of women. So any responses to that? Yeah, Ansu, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's the same point that I made earlier, that these biases and all these have been existing in the system. In fact, that's something that we've all been fighting for a very long time, and they will continue to exist because the pandemic has not changed everyone's point of view or thought process, right? It's not like some deep spiritual change has suddenly happened. So that all that will continue. I mean, whichever way they have been continuing, and will our battles become worse? Well, I like I said, I don't have the data yet, but I think every time we say that this women cannot come back to the workforce, we assume that the replacement is a man and not a woman. I mean, it might as well be a woman for organizations who've been supporting women intake and second innings and things like that continues, right? So that will happen. I think as of now the jury is out. It has affected some women in a bad way, it has affected some women in a good way. Will we need to fight these battles for longer years? Of course we have to.
Yeah. Completely with you. And I just wanted to only counter Pradya's experience. And I'm sorry that that's the experience that some of the women are having. But I must say, in the same breath, there are organizations I know of who are chasing 40% targets in terms of having women on board. And it starts with representation. Of course, it requires to be able to build cultures of inclusion. But I'm delighted to see the number of companies, number of organizations that are chasing very high representation targets in terms of being able to bring in women on board. And I think it's about keep trying till you find the right organization and the right headhunter who can help you to find these opportunities. But it is unfortunate that these biases still exist. Nilanjana Baduri is saying, as and when jobs come back, what would help the women in India, Bharat, to be ready to rejoin the workforce? In my view, it would be difficult for women to make a comeback as compared to men. Example, situation of home demanding continued presence, which had gained more acceptance during these times. So her first question is, as and when jobs come back, what would help women in India and Bharat to be ready to rejoin the workforce? Anyone who wants to respond to that?
Yeah, I want to say that, while there is an organization or little bit of man dominance, also there is one very significant factor which many times we ignore, and that is the wage. As you see the rise in wages, women participation automatically increases. You give 25,000 rupees to a petrol filling station, and you will say women worker there. But at 50,000, you will not find it. So I think as the economy picks up and grows, you will see larger participation, unlike a subdued or muted economy. So many other initiatives, this also is one dimension which we should be mindful of. So maybe this is something hopefully will improve the situation or participation apart from targeted hiring.
But Sujaya, your point was so relevant that if the government starts regulating, say for example, when they said in the opening up of the lockdown, 30% employees were allowed. What if the government said that 30% of which 50% should be women? Automatically, the organizations would put in energy because they would have to run the organizations to ensure that they would put heaven and earth would be moved to bring 50% of this 30% women back to work so work can happen. So that is how regulation would help.
Except for Adil, ironically, maybe the 50% of the 20% or 30% that they're calling back, they could easily not have enough women employees to be able to bring them back. So
Yes.
Bad
that
luck.
could be the
Bad
situation
luck.
as well, unfortunately.
No, Sujaya, bad luck. It will bring home the point that if you have women, it is going to be better for you in the future when these events happen.
Yeah.
Because that is bad luck if you don't have that women. Why did you not have them?
I think
Good point.
we will have to wait for the national unemployment data first before any such regulation can be made, because
Yeah, but I think the point Adil is making, it cannot be left to free will and for biases to
That
float
I agree
around
with.
in this fashion, that if there was some form of an intervention that compelled people to become accountable for why one half of the society is not being included. And I think that's a very useful question to ask. I'm going to end with a very positive comment from Yashwant Chauhan, and he says, great to be part of this learning session. My question to the esteemed panel is, as per the latest Global Hunger Index, India ranks 94 out of 107 countries. As per the latest Gender Inequality Index, India ranks 122 out of 162 countries. Further, as per the current Global Human Development Index, India ranks 129 of 189 countries. Given this extremely alarming reality, how do you think India needs to act strategically for leading the overall diversity inclusion agenda, especially gender, social, multi-generations, children, youth, as part of our commitment towards creating a better world for each one of us? This is a question from Yashwant Chauhan of GAIL, Corporate Headquarters, New Delhi. It's a very massive question. And I recommend strongly, Yashwant, that you attend on 2nd December, the Best Diversity and Inclusion Practice of Asia, that is exactly trying to attempt to answer the question that you're actually asking here today. I think this has been a very vibrant panel. Thank you for holding on to your own views and coming out with so many different perspectives. Somebody commented right at the start of this conversation, the entire audience was quiet for the first 10 or 12 minutes. We had absolutely nothing on the chat. And then someone said, this is so amazing because there's such wide perspectives being shared here that we're just simply trying to grasp this. So thank you very, very much for bringing forth your views. You're all very accomplished individuals. And I'm so glad that this movement has your backing and has your encouragement and your passion. Thank you very much for the great work you do to be able to keep our society diverse, inclusive, and fair. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the audience, for being here. So, Alok, great to have you on board today. Thank you for accepting to come in at short notice. Ever grateful to you for that and for contributing so significantly. Priyanka Mohanty, great to meet you again after so many years and to be able to see how you've evolved into such a fantastic professional. So many congratulations for that and all the work you do. Ansu, you're always holding your own with your own perspectives and ground level realities. And I know you come from that space, and which is the reason why you always remain the realist. Shalini, thank you for the great work you do and for sharing so many perspectives and practices here with us today. Adil, for bringing in much required stirring of thoughts and new perspectives. Thank you for your sharing here. And of course, Akhil, who I don't see right now, but thank you, Akhil, you've been fantastic. I think Akhil needed to go off to another meeting and he kind of indicated that to us. It's a condolence meeting, so we've let him go. So thank you, everybody. Until we see you again. Meanwhile, 2nd December 2020. Yeah, underline that, connect up, book your seat, be there. We want to be able to respond to Yashwant's question. All right, and that's what you're going to see unfold in a conference called the Best Diversity Inclusion Practice of Asia. Thank you for joining us today.